Everybody from Bangladesh is here, so I think we better go because they might get upset if we don't start the people in Bangladesh. L'chaim, l'chaim. Okay, it was 2 days ago that we saw this. So Moshe went out to see what was going on with his chevra. Saw an Egyptian hitting a Jew, killed the Egyptian. The next day went out, saw Dasan and Aviram fighting, chastised them. They said, "You're going to kill me like you killed the Mitzri." And then the verse, the pasuk that Rashi is dealing with, and that the Sicha is dealing with. V'yira Moshe. Moshe was afraid. Shechein noida davar, as the thing was known. So Rashi first says pshat, kepshuta. He was afraid. Why is he afraid? Well, because the idea that he had killed the Mitzri seems to be rather public, and that's what was known. But Rashi brings a medrash in the first half. Medrash Rashi says what was Moshe afraid of? That the Jews weren't fit to be redeemed, right? Because they're not getting along. What was known, the second part of the pasuk, Rashi also had to bring a medrash for that, because once he had explained the first part of the medrash in this non-contextual way, so then he also had to explain the second half of the pasuk. And the second half of the pasuk, what was known was that which was bothering Moshe for a long time. Why is it that the Jews have this terrible, terrible gullus? And what was the answer? Well, they saw them not getting along. Okay, that's the Rashi. The Rebbe asks, obviously, why in the world does Rashi bring the medrash there? The shot was perfectly reasonable, and the answer the Rebbe gave was a very, very interesting answer. That generally we're not told about people's emotions in the Torah, so why are we told in this case about Moshe's fear? If you want to say we're told about Moshe's fear because that's what caused him to flee, that's not true. Because Moshe fled, he first went home, and then Paro heard about it, wanted to kill him, and so then Moshe fled. And if you want to say there's a question that could be asked about the whole story, what do we need the story, the second part of the story? What do we need the part of the story about Dasan and Aviram? So we need that part of the story because we find out who it is that actually told Paro that Moshe had killed the Jew. That was Dasan and Aviram. So we have to know about that part of the story. So the reason that we're told about Moshe's fear is the information in the Medrash. That's what the Rebbe said in Al-Pi, simple pshat in the Rashi. Then the Rebbe says, but we want to say pshat in this pasuk, Al-Pi pshat. Why are we told about Moshe's fear, Al-Pi pshat? Right? That his fear was that this thing was known. Based on that, we brought a medrash, right? And the medrash said that there are two very special people, the chosen of the Avos and the chosen of the Nevi'im, Yaakov and Moshe, who were promised by Kadosh Baruch Hu that everything would be okay, and yet they were still afraid. Yaakov was afraid of Esav, right? And Moshe was afraid of Og Melech Bashan. That was the pasuk that was quoted in the Medrash, right? And we talked last time outside, we didn't see it inside yet, we're at the top of the left-hand column on page 2. We said there's going to be a machlokes in the Medrash as to whether or not this, in the Mefarshei Medrash, there's a machlokes in the Matnas Kahuna and the Yefei Tayar, are the two most, well, I mean, they're on the page in Medrash Rabbah. They are the two Perushim that are right under Medrash Rabbah on the page in the Rabbinic Medrash Rabbah, the Matnas Kahuna and the Yefei Tayar. So they disagree as to whether or not this Medrash is complementing Moshe and Yaakov, that their fear was a function of their great humility, that perhaps, and this is the phrase that you have to remember, Shema Garama Chet, which we'll see inside, that perhaps their chet, their wrongdoing has caused that they are no longer worthy of the fulfillment of the punishment, their humility, or that no, the Medrash is chastising Moshe and Yaakov for being afraid when they shouldn't have been afraid. Okay, let's see. Pligi Mefarshei Medrash. Page 2, second column. They disagree, the Mefarshei Medrash, but Kavonas HaMaimer, in the intention of this statement in the Medrash. The Yesh Mefarshim, there are those who explain, right? And this is brought in the Matnas Kahuna. Shezehu Shivcham Shel Yaakov and Moshe. This is praising Yaakov and Moshe. The afal pishu huftachu me'es Hashem, that even though they were promised by Kadosh Baruch Hu, mikol makim lo ysamchu al avtachon. They didn't rely on the promise. Why? Not because they think Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't tell the truth, chas v'shalom, elo, ki yadu, they were afraid, shema garam achet. Perhaps their wrongdoing had brought about a situation that v'shuv and no longer, shuv and now shuvenam, they're no longer re'uyim, fit l'kiyum of tachazu, the fulfillment of this promise, because they had somehow not lived up to whatever they were supposed to live up to in order to see the fulfillment of the promise. So this is praising their humility. Is you have a copy, yeah? You don't have a copy? What's back? Do you want to share with the doc? Because I don't have an extra. I know, but I don't have any extras. I don't know why. I made a whole bunch, but I don't know what happened. Okay, so this is praising Moshe and Yaakov to the extent that they are humble, and they thought that perhaps they were no longer worthy of the fulfillment of this promise of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Right? That's the first pshat in the Medrash. The second pshat in the Medrash, of Al Yesh Mefarshim, and this is the Yefei Tayar, as you can see in footnote 20. Again, why am I mentioning those names? You don't know who these people are? Well, okay, Seder. When you start learning Medrash Rabbah, you will have the Matnas Kun and the Yefei Tayar right on the page, and if you ever look up a Medrash Rabbah, you'll see them there, and so that's very important. All right? So what does the Yefei Tayar say? Shekavanas a Medrash she'ein l'lmoid mihem. We shouldn't learn from Moshe and Yaakov in these two instances. Shalroi, the proper behavior was shaloi lira, that they should not have been afraid. Ella, liyos, rather, what should they have been? Nachoin libei batuach b'Shem. Their heart should have been straight and trusting in Hashem. Should have bitachon, that everything would be okay. Ukedamashma, and this seems to be understood, mi pashtus of hemshech divrei hamedrash, the simple pshat in the continuation of the words of the Medrash Sham, right? In that Medrash in Bereshis Rabbah, what does it say at the end of the Medrash? Shemevi masha hanavi mekanteres Yisrael. It brings that the Navi chastises the Jewish people. Va'emer lahem v'tishkach Hashem esecho. You forgot Hashem your Maker. Va'efchad v'tivchad tamid kol yom, and you're afraid. So it seems to be that at the end of the Medrash, in the context of the Medrash, that fear is negative as opposed to positive. The way the Matnas Kuna explains that their fear is positive, it's a sign of humility. The way the Yefei Tayar explains that their fear is not positive. They should have had bitachon, they shouldn't have been afraid. And the Rebbe quotes the end of the Medrash. The end of the Medrash seems to indicate that this fear is improper. Shanavi harchiach es Yisrael, the Navi reproves the Jewish people, al zeh shayim mefachadim, that they were afraid. Okay, so that's the machlekes in the Mefarshei Medrash. Okay. Now the Rebbe is going to look into this story based on the second pshat in the Medrash, the pshat of the Yefei Tayar, which again seems to be the simplest pshat in the Medrash because the end of the Medrash talks about the fact that fear is negative.
What are they afraid of when the fear is negative? Sorry, I didn't.
Who, the Jewish people? I don't know what they're afraid of. You have to look up those psukim. That's a said that we're just the end of the Medrash, so it's talking about the Jewish people in general, right? Whereas the Medrash is the body of the Medrash is talking about Yaakov and Moshe. But then at the end of the Medrash, whatever happens later on in the Medrash, right? It's been a long time since I've actually looked in the Medrash. I apologize for that. But in the end of the Medrash, it talks about the fact that they were afraid. Okay. And the people, and that seems to indicate that fear is not so positive. Right?
No.
Mishayahu Navi is chastising Jewish people for being afraid. I think that those are the psukim from Mishayahu Navi, not Moshe and Yaakov. Okay, so now the Rebbe is going to look into this whole story based on the second pshat, and basically ask the question: why in the world is the first pshat not reasonable? Why in the world is it not perfectly reasonable to say Shema Garam Achet? Right, and now we know what that means, and if we don't, I'm going to say it once more, but we know what that means because if I have to explain it every time, I'm going to go with sugar and it'll be boring. Right? Shema garam chet, literally, Shema means lest, garam means cause, chet is sin. Okay, what it doesn't mean this might have caused the sin. The sin might have caused something. That my improper behavior might have caused me not to be fit to receive the fulfillment of the promise that God promised. Yaakov and Moshe were both promised everything's going to be okay, right? And both of them were afraid. That's what the Medrash says. So again, there's a machlekes in the Medrash. Is this praising them? And why, if it's praising them? There's a machlekes in the Mefarshei Medrash. I'm sorry, in those who explain the Medrash, the Yufei Torah and the Matnas Kuna on the page in Medrash Rabbah. The Matnas Kuna says they're being praised. Why? Shema garam chet, showing their humility, that they think that perhaps their behavior has not been proper, such that they no longer deserve the fulfillment of the promise. Okay, the words for that are Shema garam chet. Okay, those three words mean all that. Right? As opposed to the Yufei Torah says that their fear was misplaced, and we're told not to learn from them, which is pretty heavy. Yaakov and Moshe, there's a Medrash chastising Yaakov and Moshe. Okay, such a Medrash. Yesh la'ayin b'dasa mefarshim. One can look into the explanation of the mefarshim. Shahara'ui shaloi lira, that it was fit that they should not have been afraid. Dema'u chisaron b'kach. What is the lacking in this? Shechoshesh, that they were worried. Shema garam chet. Why is that not a reasonable situation, a reasonable position? That I don't deserve the fulfillment of the promise because perhaps I didn't act the way I was supposed to act. Dilachura, at first glance, adarab. The opposite is true. Zui ma'ila gedayla b'yesin, this very lofty level. Shekol kach gadla midas hanava shala, that it was so great, the quality of humility of him, his quality of humility, and now that him would be both Moshe and Yaakov, shetamid misyara, that he's always afraid. Shema ein avedasei shlema v'yesh bechet. Perhaps his aveda isn't complete, and therefore he has. And now chet in this context doesn't really mean sin. In Chassidus, the word chet is generally understood as lacking. Now, there's also a chet that means sin, simple pshat in the word, but it also means lacking. And that's how we explain the pshat in the pasuk that says that there's no tzaddik who doesn't sin. That's not true, according to Alter Rebbe. Tzaddik doesn't sin, even a Beinari doesn't sin. There's no tzaddik that doesn't have some lacking. There's something that he could theoretically have accomplished that he didn't accomplish yet. So now the Rebbe tells us where he's going. So again, Moshe Rabbeinu goes out, kills the Mitzri. Next day, chastises Dustin and Aviram. They say, you're going to kill me like you killed you. The pasuk says Moshe was afraid, that the thing was known. Rashi brings a medrash that says Moshe was afraid that the Jewish people shouldn't be, aren't deserving redemption. What's known now, right now, Moshe knows why it is the Jewish people might be enslaved, because they don't get along. The Rebbe says, okay, that's the reason Rashi brought the Medrash was in order to solve a certain issue in the pasuk, and the issue in the pasuk is what difference does it make if Moshe was afraid, right? I'm generally not told emotions in the Torah, right? And so Al Pi Pshat in Rashi, that's why Rashi brought the Medrash. Now the Rebbe is trying to explain Al Pi Pshat in the pasuk. Why are we told that Moshe was afraid? Okay, and in order to, therefore we brought the Medrash about Moshe being afraid. In a different context, Moshe's fear in the Medrash is Oid Melech HaBashan. It's not this story, but that's irrelevant. Now the Rebbe is discussing the inyan of this fear. Why would we not say this fear is a function of great humility? According to the Yufei Torah, this fear is misplaced. Why? That's what we're trying to understand. In order to understand that, we have to get into the whole idea of what bitachon is, which would be the opposite of fear, obviously. Trust. She'elazu, this question, the question we just asked in the first paragraph on page 3, why is it that this doesn't show a great humility on the part of Moshe and Yaakov? Why is the Yufei Torah seem to think that this is something, and again, that's simple pshat in the Medrash, because the Medrash talks about fear as a negative thing. This question is in the general quality of trust that we were commanded. What is that mitzvah? What is that inyan? Peirush bitachon, the notion, the explanation of bitachon, einoi, is not rak, and this is how most people explain it. This is not pshat. The Rebbe says very clearly before he says what it is. The first thing the Rebbe says is what it's not. Rak emuna b'yachelis Hashem, the faith in the ability of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lativai, to do good for him, ulachaltzei mitzara, and to extract him from any difficulty that he might find himself in. That's not bitachon. That's called emunah. Ella, what is bitachon? Shebeteach b'Hashem, he trusts Hashem, shechein yaseh b'fayil, that he actually will do that. Not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu will. Those are two completely different things. The fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can, he can do whatever he wants, and that's called emunah. The fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will extract me from this particular situation, that's called bitachon. Sha'adavar vaday etzlo, it's absolutely certain by this person who has bitachon, ad shehu b'menucha gemura, until he's completely calm, ve'ena doyeg klal, and he doesn't worry in the least. Now, where does the Rebbe get this idea? So the Rebbe is going to quote the Chovos HaLevavis 3 times. Chovos HaLevavis is Rabbi ibn Pekuda, who is an early Rishon, earlier than Rashi, right? Who wrote a sefer called Chovos HaLevavis, translated in English, Duties of the Heart. One of the first books translated into English is old. It was a stencil when it was first published. Duties of the Heart. Feldheim published it. It was early book published in English, right? A very important book called the Mahadura Kama of the Baal Shem Tov, the first version of the Baal Shem Tov. If you don't read any of the rest of the book, which you should, but if you don't read anything else, read his Akdama, read his introduction. It's written 1,000 years ago. It's absolutely fascinating. So what does he talk about? Jews are keeping Torah, but they don't have any life in their Torah. They're just doing it by rote, and there's no energy, and there's no life, and there's no simcha, and it's a disaster. Now, if you were to ask someone who would have said those words, who is the person who would have said those words? Baal Shem Tov. That's how everybody explains the Baal Shem Tov and Chassidus, etc. Right? Well, 500 years before, 700 years before the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi ibn Pekuda said the same thing. And he wrote a book about duties of the heart, that the Yiddishkeit is not simply about doing things, it's also about experiencing and feeling things, meaning not feeling like, feeling that touchy-feely. Experiencing a connection and a relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Rabbi.
Yeah. But what?
Duties of the heart.
Duties of the heart.
No, the previous one for the Baal Shem Tov.
That's the after one. The Baal Shem Tov is the Baal Shem Tov. I didn't say any book for the Baal Shem Tov. I said that it's called the Madura Kama, the first version of the Baal Shem Tov. Right? As if they predated the Baal Shem Tov by 700 years. The name of the book is called Duties of the Heart in English. In the Sicha, it says the book. He says, the Rebbe quotes the name of the book, Mavur B'Chovos HaLevavis, in the second paragraph in the middle, by footnote 28. Yes?
I forgot what I was going to ask you. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. I'm sorry that I remembered.
Am I going to be sorry that you remember?
No, I said
okay.
Maybe. Is it possible to say that at in the Middle Ages, that that was harder to have bitachon than now because their lives were so oppressive?
Let's see what bitachon is and we'll decide. We don't know what it is yet.
Okay.
The Rabbi's going to explain what bitachon is. At the end of this Sicha, I think we'll come to the conclusion that bitachon is a pretty serious avodah.
So Rabbi, you said the Madhur Kama was the book.
What? I'm sorry?
You said Madhur Kama was the one that was.
No, Mahadura Kama means first version.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's all. That's not the name of a book. Right? What the Chovos HaLevavis, Rabbi ibn Pekuda is a Rishon before Rashi. Right? He wrote a book called Duties of the Heart. It's called Chovos HaLevavis. It's 4 lines up from the bottom of the middle paragraph in the right column on page 3. It says the name of the book. We just read it. K'mavur B'Chovos HaLevavis. That book, which is translated in English as Duties of the Heart, is called by Chassidim, not by anybody else, called by Chassidim the first version of the Baal Shem Tov. Because he talks about things that the Baal Shem Tov talked about 700 years later, that people are doing things without any feeling. He talked about it 700 years before the Baal Shem Tov. And what does he say in that book? Shemahu sabitachon, the essence of bitachon, trust. Bitachon is trust, but I'm not translating it anymore. It's called bitachon. No one in this room was born understanding the word trust, and you learn that, so we can learn bitachon. Shemahu sabitachon, hu menuchas nefesh habeteach, the calm of the one who has this bitachon. Sheyeh libay samach al mi shebatach alav, that his heart will rely on the one that he trusts, in Hashem. Sheyaseh hatov v'nachain loy, that he will do, Kadosh Baruch Hu will do that which is good and proper for him, be'inyan asher yiftach alav, in that thing that he is trusting him about. Okay, now there's a number of interesting things in that. First of all, it doesn't say anywhere that things are going to turn out okay. It says the Rebbe is going to do what's good for him. Well, okay, Beseder, so that might be a disaster. It might be what's good for him is, God forbid, being sick for the next 3 months. Maybe that's what's good for him. So God, okay, so he hasn't said that yet. That's not what it's going to mean. But at this point, you don't know that. But one thing you do see very, very clearly, bitachon is relative to a particular reality about which this person has trust. That's what he said. God will do good for him regarding that about which he trusts him. In other words, bitachon is relative to and relevant to a particular situation. It is not a general state. Emunah is a general state that affects everything a Jew does. Bitachon is an avodah, as we'll see, that is relative to and relevant to a particular reality. Therefore, it's possible that I might say that the avodah necessary for this is not bitachon. It might be something else, right? Whatever that might be. Therefore, someone faced with a life and death situation in Europe 80 years ago might say, my avodah now is not bitachon that I'm going to get out of here. My avodah is mesiras nefesh that I'm going to die here. Als kiddush Hashem. Different avodah. Bitachon is absolute surety that I'm getting out of here, calm as can be, nothing's going to happen, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Isn't the former like more powerful?
I'm not voting. Yes.
Just a quick question. Bitachon and bitachon, are they just the same word?
It's the same word.
Okay.
Okay? Seder? Okay. Now, I still don't know what it is. There's 3 times we're going to quote the Chovos HaLevavos. Everything the Rebbe says here is based on the Chovos HaLevavos. So, right now we saw, but it's just important to see. Look at the last lines. Shia libay samach al misha batach alav, that he'll have absolute trust in that which he is obviously it's Kadosh Baruch Hu, the being that he is trusting. Shiyaseh atov v'nachalei be'inyan, in the matter asher yiftach alav, regarding that matter that he's having bitachon about. Okay. Now we'll see, but another example, and no one will vote on this one, I hope. Right? I'm not picking on you. Shmerel, are you Shmerel or are you back to Moshe?
Back to Moshe.
Right? Well done. Bitachon regarding getting a job, and you have 2 offers. Bitachon regarding the first one, because you think that's best, or a more general bitachon that you'll get a job. And which one? God will decide. That's called emunah. It's not bitachon. Relative to which one, that's not bitachon. That's emunah. God will decide and it'll be okay. I have absolute bitachon, the Eibush is going to find me a job, but not job A, which I might want more than job B. No, that I'm leaving up to the Eibush because I'm not sure. Right? One half of that is called emunah. Which one? I'm leaving that up to the Eibush. That has nothing to do with me. Bitachon, the Eibush is going to find me a job. I'm completely calm. I have no worries whatsoever. Just lost your job. No problem. Baruch Hashem, I have a few days off. I can relax. Absolute bitachon that I'm going to find a job in the next week. Not worried about it at all. The Eibush is going to take care of me. Which one? You could also do that in bitachon, so to speak. But you could also say, okay, the Eibush will decide that. That's not up to me. Which job? There's 2 companies I know who are hiring, and maybe this company pays more than that company. Okay, that's not my issue. Right? Okay? That just in that we'll see clearly that scheme that I just described, half of that is called the emunah, half of it's called bitachon. The bitachon is I'll get a job. I could also say bitachon, I'm going to get a job in company A. I'll get a job in company A. We'll see. A tzarech beer. The Rebbe says, okay, wait. This is bitachon. Bitachon is I'm completely calm and everything's going to be okay. Ma'u yesod levados. What is the foundation of this certainty? The kaven shafilu, that since even when there's an explicit promise, me'es Hashem, from Hashem, Yaakov and Moshe in our medrash, yitachon, it's possible, sheloi tiskayim avtacha, that the promise will not be fulfilled. Why? Shema garam achet. We know what those words mean. Shema garam achet. Kol shekain v'kal v'chomer, all the more so. Kishe'ein havtacha mefereshes, when there's no explicit promise. I don't have any promise from the Eibishter. The Eibishter didn't send me a note before I went to sleep last night that I'm going to get a job. Yaakov was told everything's going to be all right, and yet Yaakov was afraid. Why? When he met Esav, he was afraid. Why was he afraid? So if you're going to explain that positively, why was he afraid? Shema garam achet. Perhaps I don't deserve the fulfillment of this promise anymore. I haven't acted in such a way that I deserve the fulfillment of the promise. And that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. And as a matter of fact, it might be a very lofty thing to say because it shows a tremendous amount of humility. Why is that not a reasonable response? Why in the world should I think that no, absolute calm and trust that the Abish is going to take care of it and everything will be okay? Where does that come from? Very powerful question.
Well, I mean,
Last lines in the first column. Var chashash, second last line. First column, page 3. Are chashash zeh, this worry, the shema garam achet, that perhaps the wrongdoing has caused, I'm not translating that anymore. Shema garam achet, kayam etzel kol echad ve'echad. This is relevant to every single person. I mean, in the Medrash, it's relative to Moshe and Yaakov, so it's certainly relative to you and I. Ukemesha Kosuv, as it says, Ein Sadik Baretz Asher Yaseh Tov V'lo Yechta, the pasuk which we mentioned earlier. There's no tzaddik in the land that does good and doesn't, and now this word is lack. Yechta doesn't mean sin, it means lack. Al pi Chassidus. V'mikol shekein v'kal v'chomer, all the more so mizeh, Shafilu Yaakov Avinu chashash. Even Yaakov Avinu was worried. Shema garam achet. So I shouldn't. So how in the world am I supposed to have bitachon that everything's going to turn out just fine? Where in the world is that coming from? It's just a powerful question. The whole Indian of bitachon. And at this point, we understand bitachon to mean that everything's going to be okay. Why should I think everything's going to be okay? It might be a disaster. Why? Well, I mean, maybe I deserve a patch. I don't understand. The Ibsa can't give me a patch. Maybe I deserve a patch. So how can I be calm and have absolute bitachon in a situation? Now again, you're talking about a bitachon being, and the Rabbi said this very, very, very clearly, quoting L'Chavis Lavavis, bitachon is a response to a particular situation. It is not a general state. General state, that's called emunah. The Eibishter runs the world, he can do whatever he wants. True. Everything happens from the Eibishter. True. That's called emunah. That's not bitachon. What's bitachon? In this particular situation that I'm in, I'm completely calm because I know HaKadosh Boruch is taking care of it, and it seems that, and we're going to see this explicitly, we didn't see this yet explicitly, but it seems that everything will be okay. That seems to be what the Chavis Levavos was saying, and he's going to say that explicitly soon. So we quoted saying that explicitly soon, and he's going to say it even in a more explicit way, even for someone who doesn't deserve it. Well, how's that work? Okay. So where in the world does that bitachon come from? Why can't I say I deserve a patch? Maybe this is the patch. I don't want the patch. None of us want a patch. But maybe I deserve a patch. Then the patch is good for me. Well, so now the Rebbe is going to quote L'chu'ura yesh levar. We're going to go through this very, very quickly, simply because I have the rest of today and tomorrow to learn this whole Sicha and the Zel. And I'm sorry I don't have more copy. You know what? Let me just quickly go make 3 more copies. So I'll have them, and people who have copies, and if you have to get a cup of coffee or go buy a hot dog or get some popcorn or go talk to tell a good friend in Bangladesh that they should get online, okay?
Were they saying over here that what Moshe did and what
Give it in the middle.
So I haven't.
yeah, what Moshe did look
Man's laughing. Man's laughing. Man's laughing.
We can't learn from it. Is that what that means?
Learn from them. Yeah, not to learn from them.
Not what? Not what?
I'm just getting in the middle of the service, so we can't answer the questions. They probably this is
That was wow. That was a transcendent
first
time.
page
Olympic
came out a
record.
little weird. The machine ate the first page, but we've already learned the first page, so don't worry about it. The people in Bangladesh, I'm sorry I was gone. I apologize. Okay. After all of the questions, I will tell you that yes, yesterday we were blessed with a little baby grandson. After it all, it ended up Baruch Hashem. It was a long time, first birth. Youngest son, just had a little boy. Which is pretty exciting.
How many grandkids is that now?
You don't count grandkids, but Baruch Hashem. There's more than I have fingers and toes. That I know. And after I get out, I can count up to 10 in the winter and 20 in the summer, and then after that, I can't count anymore. Once I run out of fingers and toes. In the winter, I can't see my toes, so I can't count them in the summer. With my beach sandals. So I can Okay. Now we are going to see we're going to go through this very quickly. I'm not going to take any questions in what's the wrong answer. If you don't understand it, fine. The Rebbe is going to say it's the wrong answer anyway. Okay, we're going to go through it relatively quickly. This is basically the based on a sefer called the bitachon, and the Rebbe says that this is not right pshat. At first glance, you could explain this question as follows. Our question is, what's the source, what's the foundation of this mitzvah we have called bitachon? Why can't I say I deserve a patch? Inyan bitachon miyusad al ha'emuna. Inyan bitachon is based on, now, the information in here is true. Just the explanation of bitachon is not, and the Rebbe is going to show why. Inyan bitachon miyusad al ha'emuna shekol me'esabara yisbarach. The Inyan of Emunah is based on the fact, on the Emunah, that everything comes from the Eibishter. Now that's certainly true. When a person is found in a difficult situation, this is not because there's any control, to the one who's giving him trouble. So there's no control whatsoever on what ultimately happens to this Jew in the hands of the Soviet soldier or the Nazi Yamach Shema. In any way, rak, but, or simply, hakol hu min hashamayim. Everything is min hashamayim. Ubemela, therefore, consequently, hu b'menucha gemura. He's calm. Ki mamanavsha. Mamanavsha means either way you look at it. Now this is why this is not bitachon. This is emunah. It's all true. It's just not bitachon. Mamanavsha. If he doesn't deserve any negative thing to happen to him, Hadei Vadai, definitely HaKadosh Baruch Hu HaKadosh Baruch Hu will save him from this. V'zehu gam k'she'ein shum makom, and this is also when there's no place b'derech hateva where naturally she'inatzel that he should be saved, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is obviously not limited by the forces of nature. Ki mi yoimar loi, who's going to say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu ma taseh, what he should do, ubiyadai, and it's in his hands, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hands, l'shonas hateva, to change nature. So, if this person is deserving of a miracle, there'll be a miracle. V'im eino roy l'chesed zeh, and if he's not deserving of this chesed from above, umagia loy einish zeh, and he deserves this patch, adayin nafshe b'menucha gemur, he's still calm. Why? Ki yodeya b'bira, he knows clearly she'ein saraseh, that his difficulty is not tetza'ah, a result mihagavrahu, from this thing that's giving him the difficulty, whatever that happens to be. The bank manager, the federal government, or slightly worse, the Nazi or the Soviet, Yimach Shemam, Elo, ach v'rak mi'akadosh baruch hu bilvad. This is coming from the Eibishter. Shelo yotzi yedei chayvasa lifnei better. He has not fulfilled his obligations regarding his relationship with his Creator. V'lochen heviu b'tzad hazeh, he was brought to this difficulty. V'im came, if so, ein yirasei elam yakadosh baruch hu levad. His fear is only of God him alone, not of the particular person who's giving him this trouble. Furthermore, he ultimately understands that this is for his own good. As is known, even the punishments of the Torah, are ultimately an expression of the Kadosh Baruch Hu's loving kindness. And what is that? Linakes, to cleanse, to cleanse a person from the blemish of his wrongdoing. Ve'im kain, if so, ein makom l'daiga v'yira, there is no room for worry or fear. Now, basically, this is the Sefer Emunah Bitachon of the Chazon Ish. The Rebbe is bringing this as an attempt to explain what bitachon is, and this is, everything said here is true. It's just not bitachon. It's all Emunah. Does the Eibishter run the world? Yes. If a person's getting a patch, is it coming from the Eibishter? Yes. Is it good for him? Yes. Is that bitachon? No. What is bitachon? I don't know yet. But this isn't. And the Rebbe will explain why. Based on this, it's understood. Now, what this does explain is the person's state of mind. Calm. This explains the calm that the Chovos Levavos is talking about. But that's not the only issue in bitachon. There's more than just being calm. Therefore, it's understood that these things don't contradict, meaning these things that we were talking about, based on what we just read. If this is bitachon, right? A person could have absolute bitachon. I'm not going to translate it because this isn't really trust. B'Hashem, even though he knows, even though he knows that perhaps he deserves a patch. And he won't merit to be extracted from this difficulty. Because this does not diminish, and this seems to be the most important part of the whole equation, according to this understanding. From his calm, in his knowledge, that everything that is happening to him, it's all coming from the Eibishter, and therefore it's all good. In other words, to put it in words you might have heard in your life, what this is gamzu l'teiva. That's emunah. This is also good. Gamzu l'teiva, right? Nacham ish gamzu, right?
How is that also not bitachon?
Well, you don't know what bitachon is, so that's not a question to ask at this point, right? If I know what bitachon is, I can ask that question. But if I don't know what bitachon is, then I can't ask that question. The Rebbe is going to tell us it's not bitachon. Why? Well, let's see. basically what's going to be the difference between bitachon and emunah? Bitachon is your avodah before the event. Emunah is your avodah after the event. Emunah gamzu l'teva. This came from the Eibishter. It's good. Okay. I can be calm. I can be besimcha, knowing that it came from the Eibishter. Bitachon is not after the event. Bitachon is before the event. How do I relate to what's happening before something is, while I'm in the midst of the trouble? And we'll see that bitachon gives you and I the koyach to dictate the results of the event, which is really what's quite challenging about it all. And that which the Mefarshim write, sheladas ha-medrash, that according to the medrash, this is still this explanation which the Rebbe is going to dismiss. It was fitting that they should not have been afraid. We shouldn't learn from Moshe and Yaakov in that medrash, right? That we don't say like the Madnas Kuna said, Shema Garam Achet, but rather the Yefei Torah said we shouldn't learn from them. And that seems to be borne out by the end of the medrash, which relates to fear as a negative thing. Ein lilmad mi Yaakov and Moshe, and we shouldn't learn from Yaakov and Moshe that they were afraid. Hainu lafi, that's why Shepashtus, page 4, Shepashtus aksuvi mashma, from the simple pshat in the verses that tell us this story, Shayu yureim, that they were afraid, mi hadavar hametzir. What were they afraid of? They weren't afraid of the punishment, they were afraid of Esav and afraid of Oig. And that was what was wrong. The Yaakov yara me Esav. That's that simple shot in the pasuk. It seems the Yaakov was afraid of Esav. Commercial kosav v'yiram Yaakov ma'oid v'yetzer lo, it bothered him v'yachatz esa'am, and he split up the people. V'chein Meisha al tira oisei, in that pasuk in Bamidbar that's quoted in the Medrash, it says, don't fear. What's Oto? Him. Who's him? Oig. Right? Again, we said when we learned it 2 days ago. When did we learn it? Thursday. So more than 2 days, a long time. We learned on Thursday when we began the Sicha. So the part about Moshe Rabbeinu was not Parai, which is what, yes, the verses that we were learning in the weekly in the beginning of the Sicha were about Parai. But the Medrash is talking about Moshe being afraid of Oig Melech HaBashim, giant Oig. Don't fear him. And this fear shows a lack of complete bitachon in the Eibishter. That's all based on what we just said relative to what seems to be the Chazon Ish in Emunah Bitach. Aval ein bir ze maspik. This is not sufficient. Why? Ki inyan shel midas bitachon b'pashtus. The idea of bitachon simply eina rak hamatzav is not simply the situation of benuchas and nefesh of calm. Ella, there's more to it. Shebeiteach sheyiyah toiv loy b'toiv hanira v'hanigla dafka. Now the Rebbe says it explicitly. That bitachon is that the person has bitachon, trust, sheyiyah toiv loy, that it will be good for him, b'toiv hanira v'hanigla dafka. Specifically in what we call revealed toiv. Revealed toiv is the person's healthy. Revealed toiv is the person has a parnasa. Revealed Toiv is that things are happening in Eilam Hazah that we will call Toiv in terms of this world, not in terms of some lofty, transcendent level where what might be considered an absolute tragedy down here is still Toiv. Up there it's still good. But I don't live there, I live here. So whenever the Rebbe talks about Toiv, he constantly will say Toiv Nira Venigla, revealed Toiv. What you and I call Toiv. What you and I call Toiv is having healthy children who live long lives and are Chassidish Yidden. A child dying is not good in this world. From the Eibishter, it's also good. Everything's good. That's good. It's just a level of good that you and I don't understand. It's still good. Don't say it's not good. If you say it's not good, you don't know what's going on. It's coming from the Eibishter. Everything that the Eibishter does is good. It's just coming from a level, and Chassidus, we explained, that's coming from a level called Yud-Kei, transcendent reality. In transcendent levels, that's called good. How is it good down here? It's not good down here. We cry. We sit shiva. That's not called good. Down here. And bitachon is relative to Toiv and Nir Vanigla, the Rebbe just said. It was hinted at over there, but it wasn't said. Now it's said. Bitachon is, where's the calm come from at this point? absolute calm that this situation is going to end up positively based on how you and I understand reality down here in Olam Hazeh. Meaning the sick person is going to get healthy, the person who's losing his business won't lose his business, the person who needs a job will get a job, the person who, and we'll talk about it also, the Rebbe obviously is going to talk about it in terms of Avodas Hashem. Okay, how's that work?
Right,
What?
so then why does a person cry for the child who passed away? Shouldn't he have bitachon?
That's not bitachon. You should have a munah. You should have a munah.
Because
You're mixing up bitachon and a munah. Bitachon is while the child is in chas v'shalom, v'chas v'shalom, v'chas v'shalom, v'chas v'shalom, infinite amount of times. The child is in intensive care. The bitachon is absolute, complete, and total calm that everything will be okay. Whoa. The amuna afterwards is, this also came from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and I have to accept it with love. The person who doesn't cry, hard to imagine. But there's such people. With Mendel Futafas and his wife lost between 5 and 7 children in infancy. 2 children lived. His daughter got married, had a couple of kids, and was killed in a horrible accident. Mendel at the Levaya was heard walking, Mendel, Simcha, Mendel, Simcha. How do you do that? I don't know. That's a Muna. It's not bitachon. She's gone. Mendel, Simcha. That's what they heard him saying as he was walking at his daughter's Levaya. That's real. He said Shiva. Of course he said Shiva. Halacha, he said Shiva. And when he said Shiva, he wasn't allowed to learn Torah. He wasn't allowed to hear music. Did everything you're supposed to do in Shiva. Right? Couldn't learn Torah. What gives a Jew more simcha than learning Torah? Nothing. That's why learning Torah is also sitting Shiva. You can't even say the Mishnayos at the end of davening. Right? Someone else has to say the Mishnayos for the person's in the week of Shiva. Why? Okay, he's not allowed to learn Torah. He was just saying some Mishnayos so he can say an extra Kaddish. No. Can't learn Torah. We don't understand the Eibishter. But what did Mendel understand? On some level, this is called Tov. He's trying to live there. It's a hard place to be. Okay, but that's emunah. That's not bitachon. Bitachon is before. Bitachon is everything's going to be okay. Complete and total calm. We'll see. Not even entertaining the possibility of any other outcome. Where's that come from? I don't know. Is that an arm up? Yeah.
So if we're saying Gamzul Teva,
Gamzul Teva is emunah.
could we say that Trach Kuvvet Zayin is bitachon?
That's what it's going to be. Absolutely. Let's see. It's exactly what it's going to be. Well said. So we have to read this line again. Aval ein biur ze maspik ki inyane shel minas habitachon b'pashtus is not mamanavshach. If everything turns out all right, good, and if not, also good. No, that's emuna. Bitachon is it's not only hamatzav the menuchas hanefesh, the calm, which was explained very clearly by what we just read. The first paragraph in Daled. Ki, HaKadosh Baruch Hu yichal mitzaratzo, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take him out of this problem. V'lefi bir hanal yotzei, based on what we just read, the Rebbe is just explaining why what we just read is not bitachon. She'inyan ha-bitachon, lefi pashtus inyonei, the notion of bitachon, that everything's going to turn out okay, simply lefi pashtus inyan eino shayach etzel roiv Yisrael, is not relevant to most people. Because why in the world should I think things are going to turn out okay? I don't necessarily deserve that. Right? Most people are lacking. Umihu, and who, not mihu, however, mihu, who is it? This one, that he can decide relative to himself, that he's deserving of God's loving kindness. The Indian of bitachon etzlams, therefore, the Indian of bitachon relative to most people who beikr will essentially be bekach shegam im lo yizku l'chazdei Hashem, even if they don't merit the miracle, the chesed of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, harein b'menuchas nefesh, they're still calm. Why? Kevin shakol hu me'esabara, because they know that everything comes from Hashem. Vugam the tevasam, and it's also good for them. Ela she'ena, but it's not what you and I call Teva Nira V'Niglas, revealed good. It's hidden good. Still good, just hidden. Okay, well, that's not bitachon. Again, based on the model that we read before, it's either I'm going to get out of this, the Abish is going to do a miracle for me, or not. Either way, it's good, therefore I'm calm. That's fine, that's true. That's just not bitachon. That's emunah. Is the Abish in charge? Of course the Abish is in charge. So whatever happens good for me? Of course whatever happens is good for me. What's that called? Emunah. That's a beautiful thing, that's an amazing thing. Except there happens to be this other mitzvah called bitachon, and what is it? Well, the mitzvah seems to be that while I'm stuck in the difficulty, complete and total calm that everything is going to be okay because the Eibishter is going to make it okay. Where's that come from? Why in the world would I think that? Even when there's no problems, right? Life goes along normally, right? Baruch Hashem, there's all sorts of things in life that just, go along normally. And we have a life that's better than just about any life that anybody who ever walked on this little ball hurtling due east at 500 miles an hour. We have an unbelievably blessed life. It's beyond belief in Gashmias and Ruchnias. We deserve it? Shh, don't say a word. Just accept it and thank God constantly for how good your life is. Because it's unbelievable. You're hungry? Go eat. You're cold? Go get a sweater out of your closet. Or turn on the heat. You're hot? Turn on the air conditioner. You're sticky? Go take a shower. Things that not everybody in the history of the world could do. Simple things. Okay, so I deserve that. It's just the goodness of the Eibush. Unbelievable goodness. I'm not talking bitachon, I'm just talking emunah right now. Okay, can we go further?
Sure.
It's late, but we have to go a little further because we have to finish this by tomorrow. According to that model, rak tzaddikim gemurim sheshleimim b'avedasa, only complete tzaddikim who are complete in their avodah, v'einim chayshishim shem agaram achet, and they wouldn't have any worry about any lacking. Rak hem yecholim lifteach, only they could actually have bitachon that everything will be good. Shia tevin nirvaniglu. Well, that's ridiculous. That's not bitachon. Shaykh to one person in every generation, maybe three. I mean, now look what the Chavos Levavos says. It's going to make it even harder. I said this was coming. The Chavos Levavos kasav. The Chavos Levavos writes, "Bebir chasibes asher bahen yitachon bitachon." In the Chavos Levavos, there's a section called Shar Bitachon, the gate of bitachon. And in there's a section that says the reasons that bitachon might be reasonable. Possible. Okay, what's the reason? Sheyiyah mi shebatach alav. That there should be one, meaning this is incumbent upon every one of us. Batach alav, trust him, betachlis on the divus v'chesed, in his absolute giving and loving kindness. Now look at the next line. Lami sheroiloi, someone who deserves it, there's very few. Ulami she'eino roiloi, and to those who don't deserve it, which I might find hard to understand, except when I think about my own life, all of the goodness that I have certainly fits into that category. I don't see why I deserve this. Oh, what, you deserve it because you keep Shabbos? Okay, so in other words, the only reason we all deserve it is we keep Shabbos, and Baruch Hashem, I'm saying this cynically in Chas v'Shalom, I take back that Baruch Hashem, but I'm putting it in the context of the cynicism. Most Jews don't keep Shabbos, so Baruch Hashem, there's all these Jews that don't keep Shabbos, so I'm a big tzaddik because I do. Wow. So I deserve it, because I keep Shabbos. Look at all those other people over there. Baruch Hashem for them, because if it weren't for them, then I would just be normal, but I'm not normal, I'm superhuman because I keep Shabbos. I'm such a tzaddik, I keep Shabbos. Baruch Hashem for all those people who don't.
Wow.
Chas v'shalom, chas v'shalom, chas v'shalom. Okay, so I deserve what I get in life? My goodness gracious. Another healthy grandchild yesterday, I deserve that?
Mazel tov.
No one deserves it. We just thank God every time. We don't ask any questions because he's just so good. Okay? That doesn't mean we don't have problems. Doesn't mean life's perfect. Life's not perfect. But it's pretty good. Lafisha ain't a royla, tia and the divuse masmedes. His giving is constant. V'chazde nimshach. And his chesed is continuous. Lo yikares v'lo yipasek. It doesn't stop. The Chavis Levavus is writing this 1,000 years ago when his life was a little harder than ours. What was his Gashmias like? I don't know. But I would imagine his life was a little harder than ours. Right? In Gashmias. Ruchnias, he was a big tzaddik. So that was the real thing. Okay, say that. I obviously didn't worry about the Ruchnias, Gashmias as much as we might, but he certainly wasn't drowning in a sea of whipped cream. We might be upset that the pudding I like isn't there this morning. It's a rough day to put up without. It's only 2 types of pudding, and I like the 3rd type. No, I'm gonna have to go complain. Go complain to Rabbi Levin. Do you know there wasn't strawberry gill? Do you know that? Do you know today that there wasn't strawberry, whatever that stuff is called? It's not yogurt, it's something else. Do you know there wasn't? Can you imagine? Chutzpah? You know how much money I'm paying here? Right? I didn't get my strawberry, whatever it was. Shoo! What a chutzpah. There was a hair floating in the water in the mikveh. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine what the mikveh that the Chavis Levavus Tevel didn't look like? I mean, we don't have to imagine. Remember, mikvahs 30 years ago. I mean, they were just... Our son, who's now 40... So I remember I used to, he started coming to mikveh whenever, 5, 6, 7, you start taking your kids to mikveh Erev Shabbos. I don't remember how old he was, right? So we went to a certain mikveh, the Ger mikveh in our neighborhood, and it was pretty funky. The Ger Chassidim, their inyan in mikveh is they go in before the shower and then they shower after. They schmooze in the shower, they don't schmooze in the mikveh. So their mikveh was pretty, it was pretty real in there. So I remember then they built a nice new mikveh a block away from our house. It was still the mikveh I go to every day, and there were 3 pools, and they were nice and clean. And I took my son Erev Shabbos, and he started walking into the hot mikveh down the steps, and he said to me, "Hey Abba, I can see my feet." First time he ever saw his feet after he put them in the water in the mikveh. That's what they used to look like. You put your foot in the mikveh, it would disappear in the brown. No one took showers after the mikveh. There was no such thing. The Ger Chassidim did. No Lubavitchers. That's a new generation Lubavitch thing. No one took showers after the mikveh. You just, when you went on your talis, there was a nice fragrance of the mikveh you tabled in that morning. Okay, that's what it was. Now, Baruch Hashem, so clean, it's unbelievable. I can see my feet. I'll never forget that. Okay, let's go 2 more minutes and we'll stop. Tzarech lahavi, tzarech bir. Afal pi shirachme Hashem, hem gam al mi she'ein aroi. Even though the mercy of Hashem is even on those people who don't deserve it. That's what the Chavis Levavus said. He's a Rishon. He predates Rashi. Nevertheless, it's still possible that that a person deserves a punishment for his deeds that are not positive. Because after all, there is something called schar v'einish. There's something in the Torah called reward and punishment. We do not spend a great deal of time talking about it in Chassidus. Why? Because we don't want to serve God because I'm going to get a patra, I'm going to get a lollipop. That's not why we want to serve God. But is there such a thing? Of course there's such a thing. It's schar v'einish. The Ma'aseh Bereshis. The ground was punished. The trees were punished. Right? I mean, schar v'einish is part of the reality of the world. Absolutely. We just don't want to serve God that way because the Rambam says that if you love God, you don't serve God based on schar v'einish. Rambam says that's for children. Right? Children, we do schar v'einish. Oh, good boy, you said such a beautiful bracha on your tzitzis. Here, I'll give you a piece of chocolate. That's what you do with little kids. You do that with adults? Hopefully adults can do that because it's the right thing to do and not because they're going to get a lollipop. Okay? And they won't do that because it's the wrong thing to do, not because they're going to get a pouch. Doesn't mean it's not there. Of course it's there. So this seems to have done away with the whole notion of schar v'einish. Because this person who's not deserving of good gets good. Right? How's that work? Umau yesod shel midas bitachon. What's the foundation of this quality called bitachon? Sha'adam batuach, that a person is so sure she'kadosh Baruch Hu yativ loy, that a Kadosh Baruch Hu will do good for him. Afim ein roy lekach, even if he doesn't deserve it. What happened to schar v'einish? Wait, he just did away with it? Bitachon does away with this whole thing called schar v'einish. Reward and punishment. No. So then how does this work? So let's see one more paragraph very, very quickly. Just read it. We won't do much explaining, and then we'll see it again tomorrow. But Noach already told us this. Yuvan zeh, this is all understood, and the Rebbe is going to explain this at great length, how this works. It's not just a bumper sticker. V'yuvan zeh al pi divrei Rabbeinu Tzemach Tzedek, this is all understood by the words of the Tzemach Tzedek, Shehuvu kama pamim al yidei kfeituk shmei chamiyanu, that were brought by the Frierdiker Rebbe a number of times. Therefore, that means these words are true, and they came from the Tzemach Tzedek too, but they're also relevant to us and relevant to everybody because the Frierdiker Rebbe told us about them. Sha'ana la'echad shizchanen etzloi, that the Tzemach Tzedek answered to someone who beseeched him, le'erde rachamim, to arouse mercy, al chayla masukin chas v'shalom, someone who was deathly ill. And what did the Tzemach Tzedek answer him? Trach good v'tzayin good. Think good and it will be good. Chashev tev v'yeh tev. Now that trach good is going to mean now bitachon. Umashma midvarav, it's understood from his words. We don't understand how it works yet, but we're going to see. We'll see it tomorrow. She'etzem ha'machshava l'teva, the essential positive thought, which is habitachon, that everything will be good because the Eibishter is good and will take care of it. Tavi l'teitzaris tevis, will bring positive results. B'tev v'nir v'nigla, in revealed tev. How that works, we'll see tomorrow how that works. And the Rebbe doesn't pull any punches. That's how it works. Whoa. Okay, we'll see tomorrow. It's pretty heavy.